There we go. But that's the bell. Let's see it. Are you going to ring it? You guys going to ring it? There's the bell. Ding, 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 ding. Means 4 o'clock. Markets close on Broad and Wall on New York Stock Exchange. But this market is open for news in politics. Very quickly, Dow's down 300 points or so. NASDAQ down 180. Now, most of the day was right around unchanged, as the rhetoric, the geopolitical rhetoric, the Iranian-Israel situation with, some comments coming out of the White House. As that ratcheted up a bit, it sounded like it was getting a little bit more, let's call it chippy, a little bit more U.S. involvement potentially. I don't know if it'll happen. We're going to talk to John Solomon in just 1 second. But as that rhetoric started to kind of make its way through Wall Street, markets started to tick down. As always, we keep an eye on those things. Gold held $3,400 an ounce. Very good sign for gold. Oil, again, there's a concern that the Israelis were bombing some of the Iranian oil infrastructure, and that's why oil continues. Remember, we started this thing around $62 a barrel. We're up to $74, $75 a barrel right now, and that is tough for the economy. And then crypto was all over the place today. It smashed, it crashed down to 102,000, back up to 105,000 as we speak. So markets are very, let's call it, jittery. All right, folks, my first guest, in fact, is the CEO and editor-in-chief of Just the News, No Noise. I'm happy to have my good friend John Solomon back with us. John, President Trump, he left the G7 somewhat early. Here's what we were kind of speculating a little bit before the show. So is it go time for the U.S., or is Trump doing the things that if you're an Iranian mullah, you go, uh-oh, he may be for real looking at us next? There are so many things, and we'll talk about it as you do.
I think the answer is yes and yes, and that's, I know, frustrating, but I think that's the way Donald Trump operates. He figured he could get far less done with a bunch of liberal European leaders than he could back home in the sit room. He understands the gravity of this moment, that after 46, 47 years after the U.S. Embassy was taken by the extreme mullahs in Iran, that maybe there is a regime change possibility at hand. Certainly an opportunity to crush an Iranian nuclear program that has tantalized and terrorized the world for most of the last 2 decades. I don't think his first inclination is going to be to immediately intervene in the war. Why? First off, Israel has air superiority. It can do whatever it wants over the skies of Tehran right now. I think the most likely scenario is Israel's going to go in the next few days and drop a bunch of Moabs, mother of all bombs. Israel can't carry the big Moab, the one that only a B-2 bomber can carry, but it can carry some pretty good-sized ones. That means they probably have to drop 3 to 5 of those Moabs on a single nuclear site to make sure that it's imploded, flattened, and the materials are destroyed.
Hold that thought for just 1 second, because you're saying exactly what we're seeing online, and this is from Visgrad 24, right? The air superiority. They're meeting almost zero resistance. Ben, roll that sound bite, and we can talk over it as it happens. But this was just, maybe an hour ago. Just complete access over Tehran, which is great news. So Trump sends B-52s possibly for refueling. He sends other refueling assets. He's sending a lot of assets to the area because it's go time, or because he wants to say, hey, Iran.
Optionality now, with always the possibility that you have go time in a few seconds, so you want to be ready. You don't want to have any lag if you got to go. If Iran were to attack our troops in Iraq, I think he would instantly send military hardware at them. I think short term he wants optionality, and he wants the mullahs to realize this guy means business. I mean business. I got the hardware there. You want to mess? Let's go do it. But I think he really wants Tehran to say, we're done. We're done. We want to stay alive. Let's make a deal, and the deal is no nuclear enrichment.
Has it changed from Iran will never get a nuclear bomb to I'm open to a regime change? And when?
Clearly, it has changed in the minds of Israel. Israel clearly, with Netanyahu's interview last night with ABC News, made clear, hey, regime change may be an option for us now. When they started, they just want to flatten the nuclear program and make sure it didn't get to that next phase. Now, with the incredible weakness of the Iranian military, the lack of defenses over the skies, they're wondering maybe this is the time to stop the terror forever. Let's create regime change. I don't think Donald Trump is there yet. As he said today, I don't think we should kill the Ayatollah right now, but it's on the table down the road if we have to. I think he's putting maximum pressure to get Iran to do the smart thing for its existence, which is to say we will give up all enrichment capabilities and no nuclear weapons and let the West power their nuclear power plants if they want them in the future. The mullahs just haven't bit on the offer yet.
Very quickly, I just saw Macron just said he's going to convene an emergency meeting Thursday afternoon.
Good. He better not bring his wife.
Or Tuesday.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
but Emergency meet. How about you convene it today?
Today, yeah.
I mean, this stuff is heating up at the speed of sound.
That's how Europeans always are. It's why the United States has always been the superpower and the lead of all international crises. We're quicker, we're faster, we create more options more quickly, and that's what Donald Trump is doing here. I still think his inclination is to avoid conflict unless it's absolutely necessary.
So we got time till Thursday until they figure out if they're going to get involved before we do.
Right. I think we have a little bit of time.
You have another story. You're breaking a massive story. I'll let you take it from here. Folks,
and
this is
first for you. I just got this. So last night we broke the story that Kash Patel turned over to the Congress, documents showing that the FBI suspected that China was mailing tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses to Chinese citizens here so that they could create fake identities and then cast mail-in ballots for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Massive interference. What happened to that memo, according to Kash Patel told me, for some reason it was recalled and it wasn't investigated further. Someone sent it out and the FBI called it back and then no one ever investigated, even though there was corroborating evidence. What was the corroborating evidence? Customs and Border Protection intercepted 20,000 of those fake IDs.
Where?
In Chicago, going to Midwest states. Oh, the battleground states, of course. Yeah. They had the corroboration even. They pull it back. I just got text of these two memos for the first time. I'm going to tell you the back one first, and I'll go back to the juicy part in the beginning. When they recalled the memo, they asked all their sister agencies in the intelligence community to destroy the memo that had been sent out. That's very odd. You don't normally destroy raw intelligence reports. Somebody didn't want this to be discovered. Now, let me tell you what the memo actually says. It lays it out exactly as Kash Patel told us last night. In late August 2020, the Chinese government had produced a large amount of fraudulent United States driver's licenses that were secretly exported to the United States. The fraudulent driver's licenses would allow tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to the Chinese Communist Party to vote for U.S. presidential candidate, U.S. person Joe Biden, despite not being eligible to vote in the United States. China had collected private U.S. user data from millions of TikTok accounts to include name, ID, and address to facilitate this capability. Very specific. It comes from a source who's been working for the FBI just under a year. During that period, he was working with the FBI. He was chronically corroborated, so he was deemed to be pretty reliable. But there are things in this memo that clearly are wrong. It says, first off, we haven't corroborated everything here. It's out to just get lead generation. Two, we don't see address fields in TikTok, so maybe that part of the information could be wrong. But it was clearly meant to be a lead gen for investigators to go out and find out, was there about to be a massive...
We know who pulled back the FBI memo?
Yeah. We do not. That's the missing part. We do not know who called it. We know it was recalled. We see the recall memo, but it doesn't show who gave the order. Just
how do we find that out? Because clearly someone knows that, and if there's going to be a...
Senator Chuck Grassley just a few minutes ago sent a letter to Kash Patel saying, thanks for this memo. I thought this was my memo what happened. You need to find out who recalled it and why they recalled it. I want every detail about the recall and why the destruction of the document. Why would you destroy something if it's just regular intelligence communication?
Just find that chain of command.
Oh, yeah.
Someone recalled it, but someone told that person to recall it. And so, you know, it's
going to go up the chain.
It's going to go up the chain. Christopher Wray, did it stop at Ray, or did it actually link
or maybe someone else in the intelligence community? DNI, White House, we have to see.
Would they? Would the DNI be able to pull back an FBI?
They could ask it. Yeah, they sure could.
They can certainly find out. We can start.
That's where we look.
When you tend to sniff around, you get people nervous, and you tend to get more information.
People trip up, and you finally get the truth.
John Solomon, man, it's a great show. Great show.
Good to have you.
Appreciate it.
It's good. Always enjoyed being there.
We'll be back 2.5 minutes. There you go, DC. I'm right here. Hey, I'm here, right here. DC Benjamin. I'm in DC, and there's the shot. Okay, folks, listen. The president was in Calgary, Canada, for the G7 summit. Came back a little bit early, and no better person to talk to about that than, besides the president, would be our own RAV reporter Brian Glenn. Brian, you're traveling with the president. Got back a little early. Tell us. What was the reason? Everyone's saying because of what's going on in the Middle East, but what do you know? You have ears on the plane, so tell us.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Eric. You know, when we got the word yesterday that he was going to be departing the G7 summit early, of course, all the red flags went up and said, we asked the question, well, why do you think that is? You know, he does say that it's a bigger picture. It's a bigger plan as far as not just the escalation between Iran and Israel, but it did send some shockwaves through the G7 summit. And as I literally just got off the jet just moments ago and making my way to the White House, the media there at the center that was designated for the G7 summit was basically clearing out. Once President Trump says, I'm gone, well, guess what? The rest of the world media said, we're gone too. So day two, being this Tuesday, don't know exactly what has unfolded at the G7 summit since President Trump was not there. Zelensky was planning on attending today's summit and sitting on some of the sessions. So we'll have to see what came out of that. But boy, when he says he was gone, the media packed up and they left too.
That's true. There it is, the most powerful human being on the planet. Any questions? There should be no question to that. President Trump made an important comment about the group used to be G8 when Russia was part of the group. Take a listen to the soundbite.
The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago. But it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8, and now it's, I guess, what's that, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated. But
you know, Brian, you're there. You see the president. You see the workings. You see the high-level folks surrounding him. What do you think is the true relationship with Putin and Trump?
That's interesting. And I will say this, yesterday, Eric, I spent most of the day watching Canadian news, CTV and some others, just trying to get their take on things. They actually say the statement that it was Trudeau's responsible for that. They say it's wrong. They said it's the administration before Trudeau. So they were fact-checking him all throughout the newscast. I thought that was really interesting. But, you know, President Trump has always said that he wants to have a relationship with Putin, because that's how you negotiate with world leaders. You don't just go scorched earth on them all the time and then expect them to come into the table for negotiations. So he's had that relationship with Putin for a long time. He's very open about that relationship, and I think that's his negotiating style. And for those that seem to find some type of issue with the fact that he doesn't go scorched earth on Putin, they don't know anything about negotiating on high levels, and that's exactly what President Trump is used to doing. But it was very interesting to watch the Canadian news organizations kind of take everything he said and dissect it like some type of seminar on media matters or something like that. It was entertaining to watch.
You know, and I would call this a big news story, certainly within the MAGAverse, is the two sides of the MAGAverse are taking different sides of where American involvement should or should not be. We can talk a little bit about that as on one side you have pretty much the primetime Fox hosts, Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham, and others. And on the other side you have Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, who say don't get involved. The Fox side says blow Israel off the map, with Mark Levin, by the way, being the most prominent, loudest voice on the blow Iran off the map side of things, including the U.S. getting involved in it, U.S. attacking Iran specifically. And I only point that out because Mark Levin had dinner with President Trump about 2 weeks ago, imploring him to get involved physically and kinetically in that war. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you definitely have two sides there, and I think we can all agree that having any kind of nuclear capability within that Iranian government is a bad thing for everyone. I don't think anybody wants that. I think what they were just only questioning is we've been told for so long that they were just literally on the brink of having one. So the fact that the timing of this, of getting in this type of escalation, and if President Trump has said, hey, we're not going to put boots on the ground there. We're not going to have, forces on the ground or in the air. doing this. And I think that's really what the base wants to see. They don't want to see us get into a long-term escalation like previous administrations got us into. So I think that's the stark difference here. If you look at the demographic of who is really engaged in this and who wants to go to, I guess, have the U.S. just, wipe Iran off the map, it is your boomer. It is the boomer generation. It's the 58 plus, 65 plus is who really tends to want this. Now, if you look at how they get their news, it's really interesting. That older generation tends to lean towards your legacy media, your evening news on all of the legacy channels. So maybe their approach to things is maybe a little different than your typical MAGA supporter, which is getting their news from alternative sources, not necessarily legacy media. But it's a very complicated issue. I think at the end of the day, both sides want peace. There's no doubt about it. Both sides don't want U.S. casualties at all. That's a no-brainer, but we just got to really kind of tiptoe around this and make sure that we don't get dragged into another long-term conflict. And even if it's in the best interest of Israel, that's Israel's war to fight on that front. But Eric, it certainly has lit up X, and I've seen the post, I've seen the pushback. We are getting somebody about to walk out. I'm not sure, Eric, if we want to keep an eye or
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Austin, keep an eye on what's going on over here, and if we have to, we'll flip the camera over if I see anybody walk up on this. But I just saw some photographers kind of gathering over here.
The concern for me, and probably for a lot of us, should be that we want to stay united, right? Okay. Yeah, we have different opinions on how we support Israel to take out Iran. I think everyone wants to take Iran's nuclear capability down. There are different varying ways of doing it. I would suggest that we support them financially, we support them with military assets, but we don't support them with actual bombing or people or folks or kids of ours on the ground anywhere. But the concern is that because of this aggressive behavior between the MAGAverse, the two sides of MAGAverse, we're giving the Democrats a way out. Like we had the liberals were on the ropes. They were on the ropes. They were failing. Mm-hmm. America had been done with them, and now they come over here. Now it's got one group saying yes, another group saying no. So that's one of my concerns.
Yeah. And it's a lot like the Elon Musk breakup, because once again, they like when there's any kind of fracture within the base. They all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you've got some that support Elon Musk and you have some that support President Trump, when in fact the majority of MAGA stayed with Trump. They're not going to break away from President Trump and his agenda. Not to say that they want any ill will towards Elon Musk. They just, in that certain degree. So this is just another, I guess, incident that will try and break apart the cohesiveness of MAGA. But let's just see what the next couple of days look like. I know that President Trump has been in that situation room since about 1 o'clock here local time. So obviously a lot of high-level talks going on. We'll see if he's going to make a statement a little bit later today. We are the second pull for the White House. So if that does happen, we will be in there to be able to ask some questions and clarify on some things. But I don't like to see the parties split as it is right now. But when you have information that Tulsi Gabbard had that said that Iran was not intimate of having a nuclear weapon, then you see some combating reports from the Israel side saying, wait, they do have capabilities within a short period of time.
Yeah, they clearly do. They clearly do. I mean, they clearly do. So, they get close, and then there's some either covert or overt operations to ratchet it down, but it won't end until till those facilities are completely destroyed. Now there's rumors of maybe bunker busters, bombs, cluster bombs coming in, Moabs coming in, taking out their full infrastructure. Would be great. It'd be great. I don't care if we supply it. I don't want our kids piloting the airplanes that drop it. It's just it's a technicality a little bit, but it certainly will keep America from being implicated in the Third World War. Because Brian, right now it feels like we are barreling right towards World War III, and there's no reason for that.
Yeah. And look what NATO coming up next week, which will be in Brussels for NATO, giving you live coverage for that. I mean, what does that look like in wake of the next few days of this escalating. And then, of course, we didn't even talk about Ukraine and Russia. And they're exchanging, blows in the last couple of days. So you've got, it just seems like the world right now is a little bit of chaos. And if there's uncertainty, and you're a market guy, you understand that. The markets do not like uncertainty. They do not like this conflict at all.
Yep. That's true. Brian Glenn, anybody who wants, I think Lindsey Graham is the biggest vocal megaphone for starting another war, another one, and he was there to get us involved. He's in Ukraine. He just wants, he's never met a war he didn't love, and that alone is enough for me to say goodbye. Brian, really good having you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. He's got to get some rest. When you travel with the president, it's like you don't sleep. You got to be on call nonstop. Whenever he wants to go somewhere, you got to get up, get out of bed. It's crazy, but what a great job he does. All right, before we head to break, just want to remind you about my podcast and YouTube page, both updated daily. You can see the show, you can see any interview. We play all that, but a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't do here. Make sure you subscribe at one of those places right there. It's always free. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Weak men create war.
And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
Don't.
And I wonder, what is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't.
That was a weak man and a weak leader, weak president. Real leaders, real presidents take action to prevent war.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible? Is that possible in the next 24
Why not? Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible.
So let me explain this. Weak men create war. Actually, the exact phrase goes something like this: weakness begets war. So when you see missiles flying, it's never just about the thing that just happened right before it. It's almost always the result of weakness, poor decisions, bad policy. Let's be clear. Barack Obama started this whole Iran-Israel thing with the disastrous deal he made with Iran. And Joe Biden continued that tradition during his 4 years as president. If you're feeling more uneasy today because of the situation in the Middle East, two men are responsible, Obama and Biden. We wouldn't even need to have these conversations we're having right now if it weren't for those two less than good presidents. Iran being closer to having a nuclear bomb is thanks to the money freed up for the terrorist Iranian regime during both of those men's presidencies.
The United States and Iran are now settling a long-standing Iranian government claim against the United States government. Iran will be returned its own funds, including appropriate interest, but much less than the amount Iran sought. For the United States, this settlement could save us billions of dollars that could have been pursued by Iran, so there was no benefit to the United States in dragging this out.
Well, and then in September of 2023, under Biden's lack of leadership as president, Secretary of State Antony Blinken informed Congress he had a signed waiver releasing $6 billion in frozen Iranian oil revenues. It was part of a deal to bring home 5 Americans imprisoned in Iran. In return, America also released 5 Iranians, some of the baddest of the bad, held here in America. Somehow that's what Democrats call a good deal. They also chose the anniversary of 9/11 that year to announce that deal. And of course, knowing it's not all true, they tried to convince Americans that Iran would make good on their promises to only use those $6 billion for what? Humanitarian efforts. Because, you know, terrorists always tell the truth about their terrorist ways.
With regard to the $6 billion, first, again, it's always worth repeating the facts because, unfortunately, the facts get lost along the way. The money that Iran accrued in bank accounts, in this case in South Korea, for the sale of its oil was done pursuant to an arrangement established by the previous administration, the Trump administration. None of the funds that have now gone to Qatar have actually been spent or accessed in any way by Iran. Indeed, funds from that account are overseen by the Treasury Department, can only be dispensed for humanitarian goods, food, medicine, medical equipment, and never touch Iranian hands. We have strict oversight of the funds, and we retain the right to freeze them.
Got it. Blame Trump, then lie on behalf of that terrorist regime. Do you miss Biden at all anymore? Of course not. Neither do I. So just after that announcement, basically, Anthony Blinken admitted that there's no way to control how Iran spends their newly released funds.
For better or worse, and unfortunately for worse, the Iranians have always found a way to spend money for the nefarious actions that they're engaged in. They've done it before sanctions, during sanctions, after sanctions. That's going to continue.
Wait a minute. Didn't we just have him say there's no way they could ever use it for humanitarian? Oh, they can only use it for humanitarian? Didn't we just say that? Didn't you say that? Soon after that statement, Hamas carried out the atrocious terrorist act on Israeli soil on October 7th. Blinken had to admit that America, well, Biden and Blinken had a hand in it.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas. And it's done that when there have been sanctions. It's done that when there haven't been sanctions. And it's always prioritized that. And again, I come back to the proposition that these funds have always been, under the law, available to Iran to use for humanitarian purposes.
So why in the hell would you give him $6 billion, Anthony? Look, hostage deals, they're always difficult. They always involve nasty trade-offs. Usually getting Americans home means giving these countries back some of the worst people in the world. In 2014, remember this one? Obama released 5 Taliban commanders for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Remember Bo Bergdahl? Bo Bergdahl's an anti-war guy who walked off his base and basically went AWOL. And there was a soldier who was looking for him who got killed looking for him. That's Bo Bergdahl. And we gave 5 bad guys back for Bo Bergdahl. Obama did. President Trump negotiated the release of dozens of Americans held abroad and also did prisoner swaps. We get it. But Biden brought basketball star Brittany Griner back in 2022. The price was freeing Russian arms dealer, really bad guy, Victor Bout. But here's what stands out in this deal. The awful one Biden made in 2023, and that's the $6 billion ransom. As always, follow the money. Blinken was sent out to try to really hardly convince the American people that Iran wasn't going to use it to create a nuclear arsenal or to fund terrorism. But what happened? What really happened? They've done both. They've done both. Their nuclear program boosted terrorism throughout the region, funded proxy wars, supported Hamas, Hezbollah. Iran was put in its place for years, handicapped through sanctions under Trump, stifled. And now, just earlier this week, despite talks with President Trump, the Ayatollah calls for death to America. When Biden made that bad deal in 2023, he set in motion the events of the past year and a half. He didn't negotiate from a position of strength. He eagerly gave a terrorist regime exactly what they wanted, billions of dollars, including the hope of reviving their nuclear deal that worked for them so greatly. Not us, not the world. Biden gave Iran exactly what they wanted. But here we are. Weakness and bad policy have consequences. President Trump pointed it out back in 2023 after that deal was horrendously made.
This decision will be extremely deadly. Biden is giving $6 billion to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, just as when Obama sent the Iranian regime pallets of cash for hostages in the dark of night. Remember? Plane loads of cash. Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East and all around the world.
Biden and Obama they've sold America out. And President Trump was right. That's exactly what they've done. Barack Obama funded Iran's nuclear program. He knew exactly where those funds would end up when he sent those pallets of cash and released the balance, $1.5 billion. Yet another move by Obama against America's interests. No shocker there. Everything Iran does now, the enrichment of their nuclear capabilities, the brazen funding of proxy wars and terrorism, that's all thanks to Obama and Biden. The damage done by them, we're seeing the fruits of their labor as we speak. It goes without saying that a regime that funded proxy wars against not just Israel, but America too, one that routinely calls not just for death to Israel, but also death to America, they can't have nukes. Not sure what's confusing about that. Here's Saudi Crown Prince saying the same.
He wants to create his own project in the Middle East, very much like Hitler, who wanted to expand at the time. Many countries around the world and in Europe did not realize how dangerous Hitler was until what happened happened. I don't want to see the same events happening in the Middle East.
As I've said, I don't want war. I don't want any of our American troops engaged on any foreign soil or in the air. I just don't want it. But right now, Israel is fighting the fight so we don't have to. And it's one they wouldn't need to fight if it weren't for the weakness and bad policy of one Barack Hussein Obama and Joe Rabino Biden. It's also worth a reminder of the bullet we dodged if Kamala Harris were president right now. Our adversary would not only have a nuclear weapon, but might even be willing to use it.
The work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
We dodged a bullet there, folks. Back 2.5 minutes. Hey, Ben, scroll down to, I want to go a little bit lower in the rapid reactions with the Mets, the Mets story.
Roger that.
Yeah, this is incredible, folks. I just cannot believe. Again, I'm a former professional baseball player here. Yeah, I'm a straight white, male conservative former baseball player, and I just want you to see what the Mets, the New York Mets have been one of baseball's top teams. In 2025, I think they might be leading the National League, at least very close to the top of the division. But they took a rare loss recently, over the weekend, this past weekend. They had what they called a Pride Weekend festivities. They made the just gross decision to replace the American flag with a pride flag during the national anthem. Look at that. Can you believe they replaced the American flag and put up a pride flag? This is what we hated about Joe Biden when he did that at the White House. Remember when he took the pride flag and flanked the pride flag with 2 American flags? You're not supposed to do that. And I hate the Mets for doing this. Get this, too. During the game, they showed men kissing on the Jumbotron during the game. Look what they're doing right there. Let me tell you something, okay? Baseball is America's sport, right? Everyone loves baseball. Young kids, little boys and girls, watch these baseball games. They put these athletes on a pedestal. They want to be like these athletes. I'm embarrassed for Major League Baseball. I'm certainly embarrassed for the New York Mets. I'm embarrassed for New York. I'm embarrassed for the jerk or jerks who decided to do a Pride Day and remove the American flag and put a pride flag on top. And then whoever thought that zooming in on 2 men kissing during a baseball game, you should be fired too. You should be fired too. Folks, we're going to come backside of this break with Mr. Stephen K. Bannon. All right, folks, Trump's U.S. Army birthday party parade drew all sorts of coverage, mainly because the toxic Democrats tried to mock this honorary and beautiful gesture before it even happened. As usual, the airheads on MSNBC made themselves look totally clueless when they finally realized the parade was nothing more than a patriotic tribute to our troops, the men and women who put their lives on the line for us. Listen to their disbelief on the left.
I will say, I want to go back to you, Ali, that again, when we talk about this sort of tension in the country, and sometimes, you know, you and I have both been at Trump rallies. Those can be, you know, very tense, a kind of, I would say, like kind of a dark, malevolent energy sometimes in them. Not always, but it doesn't seem like that's the energy on the mall today, which I think is a good sign, right?
Correct. That you're really correct about that, Chris, and it's something we were watching for.
Well, why are California Democrats always looking for their 5 minutes of fame? Senator Chris Padilla, well, I think it was Alex Padilla, but whatever, removed from Kristi Noem's press conference after he acted like a complete toddler and physically pushed his way towards the podium to apparently ask the question. Padilla is, of course, making left-wing media rounds in the aftermath of him being removed, but he claims he wasn't looking for a viral moment the whole time. Listen to him lie on CNN.
I'm sure you've seen the DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin posted that you, quote, tried to manufacture a viral moment.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Again, what are the odds? I was in a federal building, a couple of doors down, awaiting a briefing from Northern Command, because I still believe the federalization of the National Guard troops and deployment in Los Angeles was not only unlawful, unjustified, but counterproductive. It's what's escalated the tensions in Los Angeles. The sending in the Marines, as a result, look, things have been quieting down day after day, so why do you escalate by sending in the Marines? And an opportunity to ask a question, maybe get answers that DHS, including the Secretary, will not provide in committee hearings in the Senate, will not respond to the letters that we've sent inquiring. There was an opportunity to ask a question and do my job as a senator, right? Do my job as a senator in questioning a cabinet secretary.
Yeah. He was looking for the viral moment. He was looking for trouble. He was trying, he found it, you know, FAFO. Padilla also made a stop at CBS where he joined Face the Nation to whine and lie about deportations. Listen.
Because the public approval is so high of deportations.
But details matter. It depends, as you know, it depends on how you ask the question. If you ask the same people, you know, do they think we should maintain due process in the United States of America? The answer is overwhelming yes. Do dreamers deserve better than the limbo that they find themselves in? Overwhelmingly, on a bipartisan basis, yes. And so I think it's important to break down three things. Number one, do we need a safe and secure, orderly, humane border? Absolutely. No disagreement there. People seeking to come to the United States, whether it's to seek asylum on work visas, et cetera, we definitely have to modernize that system and be more strategic in those capacities. But we can't forget the millions of long-term residents, people who have been here, working, paying taxes, raising families, buying homes, contributing to the strength of our economy. They deserve better.
You are the ranking member.
And that's really what it's about. They want those folks to get amnesty so they can vote Democrat. That's what this is all about. And the bigger fools they can make out of themselves, the more attention they get on CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and CNN. Speaking of left-wing mouthpieces, this guy, Eric Swalwell, continues to take his public critiques of President Trump way over the line. Here he is calling our commander-in-chief Hitler yet again.
Donald Trump is America's Hitler.
Yeah. You know, there was a day where that could get him at least censored in the House of Representatives, and maybe even tossed. You can't do that. Hitler was killed 6 million Jews, a murderous psychopath. Swalwell, you piece of garbage. Seems like Karen Bass almost never has anything good to say or positive to say. Listen to the Los Angeles mayor. I don't know, talk about Trump. Listen.
But, you know, I think that, one, if the raids hadn't happened, then that protest would have been a no kings protest. We know that that was planned months in advance. But the disruption and the fear that has been caused by the raids has really had a devastating effect and has been a body blow to our economy. I don't think the president understands that we have entire sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor.
Oh, Karen Bass, just Sanctuary City ain't working for you, are you, Ms. Mayor? Another terrible mayor, Chicago's Brandon, Let's Go Brandon Johnson, continues to call for violence on national television, yet nobody says or does a damn thing about it. Here he is on MSNBC telling folks to take to the streets in response to ICE.
Yeah, let me just first acknowledge the level of anxiety and fear and trepidation that this administration has caused. You've never seen a society improve or expand under this type of fear. And we're going to continue to resist, and we're going to do it in many different ways, whether it's taken to the streets or to the courts or policy. One of the things that I am very proud of is that we are a welcoming city, which means our local law enforcement do not dub or behave as federal ICE agents. And so our local law enforcement, as we continue to rebuild and expand trust amongst all of our residents, it's important that we hold that line.
You know, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. These mayors of sanctuary cities are reaping what they've sown, right? So these uprisings are ruining their cities. You asked for it. You wanted these places to be sanctuary cities. Now you're mayor, and your ratings are like trash in the single digits. It's incredible. Before we go, keep your TV, keep your laptops tuned to Rab. Things are happening really fast. Really fast. You got Bannon coming up next. You got John Solomon. These guys are on the tip of the spear of what's happening in D.C., what's happening in the White House, because things are changing. President Trump allegedly is in the Situation Room right now where he tends to make decisions about America's involvement in war. So we're going to leave it there. We're going to toss it to Steve Bannon in the War Room in just a second. But again, keep it on Rab all night, because you get the real truth here. You don't get the, I'm going to call it bullshit that you get on legacy media. Sorry, Rob Sig, had to say it. Bannon, War Room next.